Welcome to Bodybuilding Unplugged,
the new podcast keeping you up to date and behind the scenes for the competitive season and beyond.
with your hosts, director and head coach of Team Poser with Hannah and competitive natural bodybuilder, Hannah Mitchell.
And DFAC Pro and multi-time British figure champion, Zena Al-Kalabi.
Tune in and let us know what you think.
Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of season 2 of Bodybuilding Unplugged. So we've gone for a little bit of a diversion and I guess kind of a little bit backwards for this topic, because in this one we've actually, as a request that we had, was to actually dive into Hannah's backstory. So I guess I've spoken about mine quite a lot and I feel like I've shared quite a lot about kind of where I started bodybuilding. And you know what, the question actually made me realise that I myself don't even really know where Hannah kind of like truly started. And I think it'll be a super cool episode just to hear everything about Hannah. And yeah, we'll kind of dive through the different kind of periods of Hannah's life, and I guess kind of getting all the way up to today, where Hannah is obviously a very successful business owner and yeah, an absolutely amazing bodybuilder as well. So Hannah, are you ready?
Oh, I'm sweating.
Well, I'm so glad that I don't actually have to do the kind of like brain thinking and talking in this episode. But yeah, I think it'll be really nice for everybody to hear. And I guess like times like this, I always think like people just get to kind of know like the true you and like everything about you, which then I think people just kind of can relate to you a whole lot more than just, you know, I always think in like anything, like when someone follows you on social media now, they almost think like, oh, that person has everything, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not how, I obviously don't know, but I'm guessing that's not how it's always been. And you've had to obviously work very hard and take a lot of hard decisions to get to where you are now.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think you're so right there. That's actually something that I've mentioned to quite a few people, not even about my journey, about just like Instagram and like in general. Like you'll meet people, even in real life, right? Taking social media out of it, you'll meet people and they might be like in such an amazing place, or such a great position, whether that be financially, business, like bodybuilding even, right?
Yeah.
And so many people forget about the 10, 20, whatever, however many years it has been that has led to that. It's that quote, isn't it, of like, oh, I'm going to butcher it, but it's that where they speak about overnight success and the years in the process. It's something like that.
Thinking of is like, I don't know. I don't know the exact quote, but yeah, you're right. It is just like that. And I think, like you said, like even just when you meet people, like I get it quite often where they're like, you know, like, oh, it's so cool what you do, like you're so lucky. And I'm like, oh, like it frustrates me because like my number one thing like is like you create your own luck, right?
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to have had like certain things, but equally like to get everything, like you've had to make a lot of decisions and you've had to kind of pave your own way. And I think like for people to be able to hear where you came from is obviously just gonna open up kind of like, I guess, a deeper side of Hannah, which I think we all need to hear.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I really, really don't like the word lucky. I will say it in certain some circumstances. Like I'll be like, oh, I feel so lucky. But really it's kind of like a gratitude. It's like a feeling, isn't it? Like if someone ever says to me, you're so lucky, whether that be about like my situation like in life or whether it be like about my physique, like you'll probably get it about like, you know, your glutes, your back, whatever it is. Like, oh, you're so lucky, da, da, da. And you're just sitting there like, say it again. So good.
No, I'm the same as you. Like, I often just say like, I feel so grateful, or like,
Yes.
like grateful is a word I use quite a lot. But yeah, the term lucky for me, like, and you know, when even people say it, like, I just say like, you do create your own luck, and I think like this will probably display that for everyone else of kind of how you've got to where you are right now. So I guess without further ado, I think a good place to start with like anybody is kind of like, when did you kind of first get into like any kind of sport? Were you like at a young age, or was there bodybuilding the first thing?
Yeah, so it's quite funny, isn't it? Because you'll find that with bodybuilders, it's like one or the other.
Yeah.
Either they're like massively into sport or they hated sport completely and then they're
Yeah.
all of a sudden in the gym. So I absolutely love sport. Like
Mhm.
all sport, any activity. I started dancing when I was 3. So
Oh,
like
nice.
dance classes, like
Yeah.
ballet, tap, acro.
Yeah, like, I
Um
can imagine that, to be fair. It's probably why
yeah,
you're a posing coach now, right?
like you know what? And I'm so glad that I did it because of the
Yeah.
discipline.
Yes,
Because
100%.
dance classes now, it's going to sound horrible. Dance classes now aren't what they used to be.
Yeah.
You would go to that dance class and you would probably be crying because they would be like, no, again, five,
Yeah.
six, 7, 8. You're like a
Yeah.
5-year-old and they're like, no,
Do it
again,
again. Do it
do it
again.
again. Right? And
Yeah.
that's good. Like,
Yeah.
it's great. That is
Mhm.
literally builds you into such a, resilient person and character and puts you on that path. Like, I'm so here for people, that go like to boxing and it's kind of like that
Yeah.
same energy. And
Mhm.
obviously there's certain aspects of it that like maybe weren't great and are great now. They're a lot more accepting of different body types. Like I
Yeah.
used to get like called horse legs back in dance.
Yeah.
Like, and I look at my legs then and I was like, bro, there was twigs. Like, now we're gonna like you, yeah. I wonder what they call me now.
So did
Um,
you do like that competitively, or was it like just for fun, or?
Yeah, so really seriously, like I've got my bloody cupboard in front of me. Like I did all my exams, I did my teaching
Oh,
qualification, like
nice.
so yeah, it was every single week for 3 hours.
Wow.
Again, like non-stop basically. And I used to perform at theatres, like and then I did start to compete in dance when I went to university. But before any of all that, like it wasn't just dance,
Yeah.
so this probably doesn't come as any surprise, but in like school, like junior primary school, secondary school, all that jazz, I did football, hockey,
Nice. Yeah.
netball, anything possible,
Yeah.
right? I
Nice.
actually used to play football for Wolverhampton Wanderers under 16s.
Cool. What position?
um, always striker, always up front.
Love
They
that.
put me in goal once before and they fucking regretted it,
Oh,
man.
really? Oh, really?
Were
Okay.
you?
Yeah, I'm lazy. I'm lazy. Oh, it's just stop.
See, so I was just like, as you can also imagine, I was like a fucking Duracell bunny. I was like,
Yeah.
like right. So that was amazing. Unfortunately, I stopped football down to the fact that training was on Tuesdays. Tuesdays was the day that I was meant to spend with my dad, so I
Mhm.
had to make that decision.
Nice.
um then again, like carried on doing all sport at school, but it was more just
Yeah.
like, when you play for the school team.
Yeah.
And then went into uni. Oh wait, no, started the gym at
Cool.
16.
Okay, so before uni, and you were still
Yeah,
dancing when you started the gym?
yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Did you
still
go to the
so.
gym because of dance to like get better at dance, or was it to try something different?
Yeah, so this is where my relationship with probably myself and with eating and a kind of exercise like maybe took a turn basically.
Okay.
So I was a really late bloomer. Like,
Okay.
everyone had like already gone through puberty and everything, and I was, imagine me being like 4 foot. Like I don't, so probably without too much information, but then again, people listening to this will be okay with this level of information. So like for example, I didn't start my period until year 9.
Yeah,
So like,
how old were you then? I was 16. But
wow.
I put that down to us being sporty, right? Because like
Yeah,
also, like you see from gymnasts, like some of them start
yeah,
like I may have been a bit younger, like 14, 15, but it was late as
yeah,
well. But I
yeah.
think definitely from being overactive for sure, right?
Yeah. And because of that, because I was like short and my family are massive eaters, like
Mm,
all of us. I was speaking about it, not in a negative way, but there's no one, literally can't even think of anyone that's in my family that's like underweight. We're
yeah.
all pushing over the line. Like all my family, like we've got like issues in terms of like say like diabetes or like heart issues, etc. And it's all down to the fact that we're all massive eaters, potentially like a little bit overweight, right? So I was at that age where school is absolutely horrible. Let's be honest. School, when people look back on school and they say, "Oh, it's the best years of my life," I'm like, "Where? Who?"
That was not me.
That was not me. I'd never want to do that again. Especially primary school, because I was short, fat, glasses. My teeth were too big for my face at that point. So all of those things rolled into one. Then when I could start to go to the gym, all I went for was cardio and classes.
Fine,
so I was like, that's real. And this is where I do love speaking about this though, because I do feel that nowadays that so many people go in, they've like their first week in the gym and they're like, I'm on push pull medial deltal side lateral split, and and I'm really grateful for the fact that I walked into the gym and I learned everything from the ground up by just like absorbing. Right.
And I think definitely like in the long run it's like better in the sense of like, you know, your passion's real. Like I think quite a lot of the time is like people have these like identity crises almost because they're like go straight into something that maybe they like not
They
haven't
kind of
earned the
force
right to do yet,
themselves.
but you need to like figure it out, right?
Yes.
But no, I was the same when I went to the gym for the first time. It was just cardio and classes because like I didn't know what else to do. But like, did you kind of feel like at that age you were almost getting like bullied, which is why you wanted to go, or was it like,
Yeah, it was definitely down to that, because if it was down to just the fact that it was activity, I was already doing so much activity. Like I'd be doing something every single day of the week. Like, that was never a doubt. But it was down to the fact that I was like bigger than other people. Like again, I hadn't hit puberty, so I didn't have boobs and an ass or anything. So it was like, well, the only thing I can do is lose weight. So I, at the time, and this is like, it sounds bad from an external point of view, and people may have like a negative thought on this, but I don't have any negative thoughts on why like my mom allowed me to do it. But like, for example, for prom, like I was on Slim Fast. Like, and you know, at such a young age, like my mom now, she does use those kind of like products, those kind of like systems. They're definitely systems, right? Again, like my family have always all struggled with that side of things. So I was introduced to that at a very young age, and that was the environment that I was kind of surrounded with the whole diet culture. And it all comes from, and I'll take this to my grave, like it all comes from like your self-esteem, like that you don't think that you're kind of worthy of like fuel in your body, in my opinion. So being in that like environment then, and just going to like these cardio classes, like I was turning up to school with like salads. Like I didn't know anything about like protein or anything like that, but I always made my own kind of like dinners, like from a very young age. Like my mom worked 3 jobs. So it was very much like I did my own kind of nutrition. At the end of the day, she couldn't necessarily see what was maybe going on, but and when I started in year 7, I used to get 2 buses to school, 2 buses back, because of the school that I wanted to go to. It was a good school. So again, like I was out the house for all that time. So she wasn't aware of like maybe what was starting to happen. But I ended up massively like over restricting and just dropping so much weight. And there's a photo of me on my 16th birthday. So I actually think I must have started at the gym way earlier. I think I like lied about my age. I must have, because Pure Gym was like, you had to be 16.
You probably.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Then
I definitely started. Oh, go on, sorry.
So when you were like at 16, that photo, were you like lean at that point then, or were you kind of just like ill almost?
Yeah, I've never been, diagnosed with like an eating disorder, and I
Yeah,
don't ever say I had an eating disorder, but I
yeah.
definitely had
Disordered
disordered
eating.
eating,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
that image is like one that I'll try and send it you later, but
Yeah.
it's one where you can see that it was an issue, like, through the
Mm.
face, through like even how the skin
Just like,
looks.
yeah, like malnourished almost.
Yeah,
So going
yeah.
from like that point at your 16th birthday with like balancing like going to the gym, starting and still dancing, where did you kind of go from then? Did you then go to university and then like favor one, or kind of like when did kind of dance phase out and the gym become like more prominent?
I actually love that because I think a lot of people think that dance phased out like so much sooner than it actually did.
Yeah.
I was dancing all the way up till 2018.
Oh wow,
Um,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I went away to uni, and if anything, uni helped in some matters. So I
Mhm.
put on a lot of weight when I went back to uni, but on reflection, like from doing all this kind of like deep dive into like the whys and how
Mm.
things did occur, like I now realize that it was down to the fact that when I went to uni, instead of restricting myself, I was just kind of torturing myself, or like
Yeah.
through actually like overconsumption. So I had real issues with like emotional eating.
Yeah.
I used to go out. I know that everyone's like, oh yeah, I used to go out at uni all the time, but like
Mm.
I used to go out at one point. I think I would be like 5 nights a week, and I'd be blackout drunk. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't remember a thing.
Yeah, but like
Um,
that's almost kind of like I think in those times it's like you're almost like hiding the fact that you have problems, right? Like I did the
yes,
same. Like there was definitely a period of my life where it was almost easier just to be drunk than to kind
yes,
of like deal with like the deeper shit that's going on.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
until you kind of take a step back and be like, what am I doing? I think that's
yeah.
like when you kind of change from the fact that like I'm not drinking because I really love drinking every night. It's almost like you kind of create this new normal for yourself where you kind of drink because that's why you almost feel like the world can't touch you, right?
Yes, 1,000%. And it was like throughout all of school and uni, I mean, at times I may still have this almost, I guess, connotation or name to myself of like Hannah the fun one, right?
Yeah,
But like at school and uni, it was like for example, I'd get kicked out of class because I'd like be joking around, right?
yeah,
I was the clown, right?
yeah,
Then through uni, like again, it was like, oh Hannah, come on, come out, you're the fun one. I'd be like, doing the fucking cartwheels on the dance floor, dumb
yeah,
shit. So it was like I
yeah.
was trying to always be
Please
liked by
people.
everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I was always trying to be that entertainer to fit in so that yeah, people liked me. Exactly.
yeah,
Um so then go like whilst I was at uni, I was doing all that in terms of like overeating and obviously over drinking. So
yeah,
calories, etc., were extremely high, but it
mm,
was almost balanced out by the fact that I was still going to the gym
yeah,
2 hours a day,
yeah,
not a day, but 2 hours, and I was programming myself rest days and things. But
mm,
then I was actually dance training. So I was in a team where we competed across the UK. And
yeah,
when I say this was training, it was
yeah,
amazing, like amazing, but it was again hard. And there'd
yeah,
be certain points that I'd be dancing every single day.
mm-hmm,
So, that on top of everything else, it was almost balancing out like my
yeah,
food habits as well. That
yeah,
being said, I've always been interested and careful, like thinking about nutrition. Careful is
yeah,
definitely not the word, but thinking with nutrition in mind.
mm-hmm,
So I was probably the only person that would be at uni with meal prep.
yeah,
And it didn't mean that I knew what I was doing,
yeah,
right? But I was like, no, for breakfast, I would have something like yogurt and granola.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
I would take my chicken and roasted veg.
yeah,
And then I wouldn't eat carbs like around my training because I didn't know anything about that.
yeah,
But like, I would just be like, oh, well, that looks healthy, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, I'm very proud of that
Yeah,
because I was still doing something about it. I was still nourishing myself to an extent,
Yeah.
but then I was also obviously eating a hell of a lot of shit on top of that.
Yeah,
But
and like you were
I
just learning it from like yourself,
yes,
right? Like you were
yeah,
almost creating your path without even knowing it. And I like you were
yeah,
just like creating these habits that soon would lead you to kind of the place like that they are kind of like second nature.
yeah.
But without those like almost like ground laying things, you wouldn't
Yeah,
know whether
without anyone like necessarily telling me that's what I need to do to grow muscle. I wasn't really ever trying to grow muscle.
yeah.
I was just like in my head thinking like, right, okay, this looks about right. I was always like
Mhm.
YouTubing and things like that, and I was
Yeah.
always interested in people who were doing fitness. And I
Mhm.
remember the switch for me from when I stopped doing cardio to weight training. I booked on to a Pure Gym class and I
Yeah.
turned up either late or it was fully booked or something like that. And they were like, yeah, you can't do it. And I was like, what? And I was like standing in the middle
Wow.
of the gym, like sweating, thinking like I'm about to die. Like,
Oh,
and all I did, I turned around and I saw like the closest machine to me, and I just sat on it and I just like started doing some leg extensions.
oh my god. And so how old were you when that happened? Just so we
So
can put
at
like a
the
timeline on it.
yeah, that must have been when I was around 17. So that was
Yeah.
before
Started
uni. So
before uni,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
fine.
just before.
So then
Uh,
where did it kind of go through from that day to like
yeah.
then I guess like actually doing more weights and less cardio?
Yeah, the when I did that like session for me, there was like almost like a circle of leg equipment. You know, in Pure Gym they have
Yeah,
like
yeah.
little
They
weird
just sit
layouts,
together,
right?
aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, so I literally like did the leg extension, got off, got on the next one, whatever that was, got off, got on the next one, and like did that like circle.
Love
And
that.
then because I'd been going there for such a long time, and whenever I did the classes, I'd obviously speak to the PTs and things like
Yeah.
that. The PTs were just walking around, and one of them was like talking to me about the different machines, and he was like helping me in it. And
Oh,
so, yeah, if anything, as much as people slate Pure Gym PTs and Pure Gym
yeah.
in general, they are the basis as to kind of like how I then progress from there, right?
Yeah.
Because without the classes, I then wouldn't have gone onto these random
Exactly.
circuits.
Yeah.
And from that moment, like no word of a lie, it was like a flick of a switch.
Yeah, I love
And mate, from then, like I'd only been on it for like 10 minutes. I went home, I wrote out a program. Like, and I was like,
I'm gonna do
7
this.
sets of 20.
Yeah, as you do. Love that.
And I just was like, okay, so I'm going to do legs. But again, another thing that I'm quite proud of, it was always legs and back.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
Queen always did back,
You
right?
already knew. You
I
already
already
knew.
knew.
So then,
Yeah,
so yeah, so you did that, and then obviously you kind of went to uni knowing that.
yeah,
And then I guess what point did you decide like, okay, like I don't want to dance anymore?
yeah,
Because I guess that's
yeah,
kind of a big change, right? From
yeah, yeah.
like
I
doing
would,
something from when you're 3 to then saying like, okay, like I'm not gonna do this to the same level right now. When was
yeah,
like that moment for you?
yeah. So it's straight before we recorded this podcast, I said to Zena, I've actually got like there's so much backstory that if anything, we're not going to be able to dive into maybe like the raw emotional side of like childhood and things like that, right? Because we just don't have time. And we want to obviously stick to the more bodybuilding and physical side of things, but there is one element of my life where yeah, there was it's most significant. But so when I moved to London and I did my master's in cancer pharmacology, I actually did my love for training and things like that. Like it never stopped. And
Yeah,
I was logbooking, like I said, from day one.
yeah,
And when I moved to London, I joined the uni gym while I was there.
mhm,
And I was still I found a dance team in
yeah,
London and still doing the two.
yeah,
But that gym had a guy that would work for the uni gym, and he really helped me. Like, I don't think he realized the impact that he had. Yeah, he educated me so much, and it's so cute because I'm probably outing myself so much, but I used to do these little video YouTubes.
Everyone get on there.
And my name, so I was outed from about this yesterday because the name was More Than a Booty Call.
Oh my god.
But it was a pun. It was like a play on words of the fact that I didn't only do leg days, right?
Oh my god. You've got everyone pausing the. We're gonna have view drop-offs right now because people are gonna be diverting their attention to freaking not just the boot call.
If people are not actually watching this, I'm bright red, so enjoy this embarrassment of myself. You can only be embarrassed if you're embarrassed, right? I'm not embarrassed. Gross. So like these videos were like, yeah, I did my landmine split squats.
I love it. You were on it. You were on it back then.
I'd already created my Hannah's Health Instagram.
Yeah.
I'd already started like logging my terrible squats in my Reebok platform trainers, and
Nice.
I did all the wrong things, and I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah,
And
sure.
after doing that for however many years, and like I said, like at London was like the turning point for me, basically, because the dance group that I did join, it actually stopped because it was associated with the uni, that one. It stopped in like May time. And because a master's degree, you're all the way through the year, so you don't leave like everyone else does in their undergrad. So you stay until like the September, October. So I had that period of time where I was no longer dancing, and all I did was train. Within that time, like living in London was one of the biggest parts of my life in the fact that I learned a hell of a lot. Like I was actually living with basically living with my boyfriend at the time. You know, when you think you found like the one, you know. And at that summer period, a lot of things like started to go really downhill for my mental health. So I was under investigation for like endometriosis and like polycystic ovary disease and things like that because I used to have such bad periods. They thought that I actually got diagnosed with PMDD in the end, but they were putting me on so many drugs that it fucked me, mate. And that's why now I won't touch anything hormonal because I'm petrified.
To be fair, I went on Roaccutane once and I went on the pill once, and no lie, both of them made me want to commit. Like to that point, like that, it literally was like I have no idea, I have no control over what they're doing to me, but like I am not okay. I can't even imagine like with all of the meds they put you on, like how you must have felt.
Yeah, it was the issue that I have with how the NHS like did what they did. It was kind of like X amount of weeks on this certain pill, and then it didn't do anything. Here's a different one. Here's a different one. And like I can't imagine like the education I obviously do have. All these things were going to have different impacts on like my progesterone level. That could have been a progesterone only pill. It may have been like a combined pill, right? Like my body must have been like, like what is happening? So that was massively affecting like my mental health. And then a lot of things happen all at once. So I was obviously doing my master's dissertation, which is a stress within itself.
What did you do for anyone listening, your undergrad? What did you do for that?
So I just did like straight up pharmacology.
Okay, and then you did your master's after that?
Yeah. So pharmacology, for anyone listening that doesn't know, no, it's not farming. And no, it's not pharmacy, because they're not the same. And those are the questions that I get all the time.
And was that a 3-year degree?
So what, sorry?
3 years?
Yeah, 3-year degree, and then 1 year like for the masters.
Where did you do that before you moved to London?
Portsmouth.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
On my end, almost. Cool. So then
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, moved to London. Then there was that kind of summertime where, unfortunately, my nan got diagnosed with cancer. And people that listen to this may know, like, my nan's was my absolute world. My cousin, who I actually had lived with for quite a long period of time, also got diagnosed with cancer. She was 34,
Wow.
3 kids under 3. And basically the reason why I was the person I am today. So that happened. My dog Sasha, don't know if you remember Sasha from like Instagram. Yeah, so she actually had like this ruptured spleen incident, and I thought she was going to die, and I'd had her since like 8 weeks. Then the boyfriend that I had been best friends with for like 3 years, and then we'd got together, he actually cheated on me and left me for her.
Oh my God.
And this all happened in the space of, no word of a lie, like 2 months.
Oh, fuck.
So I was like living alone, obviously, like in London, in this like box room. Like, if I described the size of the room, like I had a single bed and the door would like hit the bed when I opened it. Like, that's how small the room was. But again, something that maybe we will dive into like on like another topic could be potentially the fact, like, I grew up from not having like much money at all, but I've still managed to kind of pave the way that I have, if that makes sense. So yeah, there was a period of time that I was, well, the lowest I've ever been, and hopefully ever will be, right? And I did, unfortunately.
During that period of time, were you also still in like a bad relationship with food, or was that kind of almost like normalized by that point?
Yeah, so food, oh no, bad time for it to be acting up.
I can hear you fine.
So yeah, I'll be honest, within that period of time, you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'll just keep going. It's catching up, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So within that period of time, my relationship with food was horrendous. I used to drink even more. And then I actually would turn to like other substances. So there was like all that side. So it was just making it worse and worse. And then it got to September, and I actually did try to like take my own life. So at that point, I decided to move home from London. I moved back in with my mom. I got a part-time job at a pharmacy. I got a part-time job in sales, and I decided to just like go pretty much like all in with bodybuilding because of the Instagram that I'd like built, and because of like the kind of connections I guess I'd built through the fitness community. Like, I managed to learn even more about bodybuilding, and I actually said, I remember this like clear as day, like I moved home and I said to my mom, I need to do this because I need a reason to get up in the morning. And by knowing that I'd be like getting up and getting on the spin bike, or like getting up and going to the gym, like whatever it was, like that was making me get up. And in all honesty, like that's why I will always say like bodybuilding definitely saved my life. Yeah. And I know that does sound, some people listening might be like, oh, like go to therapy, but yeah, it's
it gives you purpose when you've kind of like felt like there was no hope, right? Like I also found bodybuilding when I was at my lowest too, and I feel like it gives you like a sense of like just something to put your whole kind of life into, but you also get so much back from it as well. And it's like you wake up in the morning with a plan, don't you? And it's like you just I
Mm-hmm.
completely get it, and I think a lot of bodybuilders will feel the same. And I think we all have to kind of
Yeah.
be almost like a certain way to be in the sport the way we are, because we are. It
Yeah.
is our life, you know. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you've still had other things going on, which we'll get into with kind of like your cancer research and stuff. But like, I can 100% vouch for the fact that like I completely get it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with like you just said about you can like put your heart into it, and you've got that like structure and routine, right? And then the other side of it is the fact that your only responsibility, or the only responsibility I wanted to have, was bettering me.
Yeah,
I decided, right, that was a failed suicide attempt. So that
yeah,
means that this is another chance. So I need to be better
yeah,
because I've got no other choice.
yeah,
So that was kind of like the turning point of like
mm,
do something about it then.
yeah, for sure.
Um and I'd moved back in like the September October time, and
Yeah.
then that's when I got my first bodybuilding coach in the April of
Hmm.
2019,
Yeah.
and then stepped on stage in the June.
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
just
And at
and then
that
it
point,
and then it went from there.
yeah. And had you finished your masters when you'd competed that time, or when did your masters end during that like phase?
Bro, I finished my masters in the October. I got the highest score in my whole year, and
Yeah.
I finished with 92%. I was fucking
Absolutely insane. Like truly just like turned your whole life around. Just absolutely like incredible.
yeah.
And then I guess you kind of after that 2019 prep, I guess we can kind of go into like the preps themselves, probably like each show in another episode. But like from that point, then did you get
Yeah.
your cancer research job and stay with that coach, or did you kind of like where did you go from that point where you kind of thought, okay, like I actually want to pursue like this? So where did you go from there in terms of like your job progress to where you are now?
Yeah, so that's actually something that probably I haven't spoken about much really, but I went from working well, I've definitely spoken about the fact that I've had 2 or 3 jobs like my whole life since I was
Mm-hmm.
like 14. So I
Yeah,
started teaching dance at 14,
yeah,
and like I had a job all through school, all through uni.
yeah.
I was a dancer in a club. That's how hard times got, right? Also worked in Gap.
Nice.
Also
Love
worked in a
that.
pub. Like yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've
Nice.
literally probably done every role that there is.
Yeah.
Um, so when I moved home and I worked in the pharmacy and I worked in sales, that was for HelloFresh.
Nice.
So yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was really good because it just got me out there. So
Yeah.
I actually did that whilst I was doing my bodybuilding prep.
Hmm.
And that whole year that I did work for both of those jobs, I actually was oh my god, I've lost my word. Applying.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have been like gone. I was applying. Well, maybe this is why I didn't bloody get it. I was applying for PhDs like that whole
Okay.
year.
Yeah. Fine.
So, I wasn't successful. I got to Cambridge final 3, which
Cool.
I'll fucking hold
That's
that up
pretty good.
because I'm
Yeah.
proud of that.
Amazing. Yeah.
um, but I just always seemed to be like second candidate, third candidate, and
Yeah.
it was the rejection from that. I found myself starting to go backwards slightly,
Okay. Yeah.
because
It's
it
like
was just
a setback.
knockback after knockback.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can probably like relate in the sense that I didn't just apply for one every 6 months.
Yeah.
Bruh, I was
You just
applying
put all
out
in.
my
Yeah.
ass. I was going for interviews, traveling up and down. Like, I forgot about this. The night before my first bodybuilding show, because I drove myself, I didn't know anyone, I didn't know any bodybuilders, right? I drove myself and I was in a Premier Inn, Travelodge, something like that. And I was doing my PhD interview, presentation slides the night before my show. And then I went to the interview, in the week, bright orange, because I didn't realise the tan wasn't going to come off.
You at this point, because I remember you putting like a story up, being like, "Oh, I'm just going to my interview like an Oompa Loompa." I swear I remember that.
It must have been. Yeah, so that wasn't a vibe. That's probably why I didn't get it. No, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't. So off the back of that, the job that I did actually land was the first job I applied for.
Amazing.
And it was in Birmingham. Yeah, it was in Birmingham. It was a research, not an assistant, like a research technician.
Yeah.
And I ended up being within the business for 4 years. Within that time, I'd had 3 promotions, but also within that time, I wanted so much more. Not necessarily for the money side, although that isn't great, and anyone that works in research knows that. Like, we know that you don't get into research for that reason. But I just found myself for like a whole year, mate. Like,
I remember this period of time. You were just like not satisfied with what you were getting. Like, you were putting so much in, and I remember you saying like you were just not getting like enough out of it.
Yeah. I felt, again, this is a moment of time where I could feel myself falling again. And I think, if anything, if I've learned anything over this time, if I ever feel myself falling, I pivot. I'm gone.
Yeah, you
like
have to change.
you have to adapt, right? And I know that sounds so drastic, like, oh, it's only a job. If I'm not happy in my life, I'm doing something about it, because I spent way too long of my life unhappy. So I think, and that's probably why, number one, we get on so well, but also, like, as bodybuilders, right, that is kind of an approach that will make you successful, because you are always striving to, like, do something about it. You're not sitting there moaning about something. A successful bodybuilder sees an issue and makes a solution.
Exactly.
And that's kind of how I saw it. So I was unhappy for a period of time. Like, I was trying to make myself happy in that role. Like, I even like presented the issues that I was finding. Like, I was saying, I want more, like, please, like, give me the training for more. Like, I even actually approached them saying that I'd do a PhD within the company and like all of this stuff, but it just wasn't it. And weirdly enough, obviously not weirdly enough, but off the back of my first season in 2019, like, coming off stage, I immediately did get like messages off people asking for help with posing, and I never charged anyone. I had never charged a single person within that time frame. I was like, yeah, of course. Like, because typically it was people that were local, so we just meet up and I'd be like, try this. And it kind of like really just grew organically from there.
And I think that's like such an important point, though, is like, I think the problem nowadays is people aren't willing to give anything for free. Like, knowledge and any successful business, any successful kind of thing with bodybuilding, like, you have to be prepared to give out information for free and show people like what you can do, what you know. And like, for you, like, I would say you are like naturally talented at teaching posing, and obviously coming from your background, like, that explains it. And like, being able to kind of give that to people for free has then kind of allowed you to then get to the point where, you know, you kind of feel like you can charge for your services, which obviously you can. But I think nowadays people like just almost like instantly think that they can charge the prices of somebody that has spent like years going up the ranks, and it's just like, that's just not it's not how it is.
It's such a shame. And like but in my opinion, it's very, very obvious when you can see the difference between the people that are doing it for the love and they're charging what they're charging because it's what they're worth, it's their experience, it's their time, it's the years that have got to that point, and the people that are just putting that price on because they want an extra income. There is a large difference, and it's very clear to me as an external person, but unfortunately that's not going to be clear to someone who is a first timer. But I think the reason why I didn't charge, it wasn't actually initially to like, oh, I'm going to gain experience and then take this somewhere. It's just because I wanted to
Love it.
help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I
You
just was
love-
like, that
love
sounds sick.
Yeah, genuinely just love watching people do things and like wanting to help them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So it just definitely just organically went from there. And say I was working like a normal 40-hour work week within the lab. Again, you'll understand this. Like, yes, it's a 40-hour week, but there wasn't a single day of working from home. So, plus an hour each way commute because it's Birmingham, plus training. And then I also ended up probably racking up to like 20 actual hours of teaching posing a week, and then obviously replying to messages and helping to get people booked in. So I got to that point, which was probably like 80-hour weeks maybe. And I was like, okay, I haven't seen a person in probably 2 years.
And was that kind of built up whilst you were still at the 4-year job, or had you changed jobs at that point? You're still that job.
Yeah. So that was like, again, I people would always ask me, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, or maybe a bit longer now, God, time flies, doesn't it? But like, oh, are you going to take this full time? I actually would be like, no, I just love it. And I would be like, no, I want to be in like the job that I'm doing now, because I saw such prospects for that job and I wanted to go so far with that like industry. But I then learned a lot like about that industry and how it just potentially wasn't going to be the case. So it almost was, I got to this kind of crossroads and I was like, Hannah, choose what makes you happy. Literally, what I was turning up to work and I'd be in a great mood, and within 10 minutes I was miserable. And I was like, nah, it's not happening. I'd have 10 hours of posing lessons and I'd finish it and I'd be like this. I'd be like, and I'd be like, right.
What like gets you excited to get out of bed? Like a list of clients like booked in for posing sessions, or like a day in the lab where like you can get shouted at for having your meal, like.
Yeah. So it just kind of got to a point where I was like, you know what? If it doesn't work out, you can go back to the lab. No drama. No issue.
Yeah, exactly.
And now I'm obviously like a year and a.
Yeah.
I think I left. I think it was like September.
What was the tipping point? What made you think, do you know what, I'm gonna be brave, like I'm handing my notice, that's it, I'm done? Like what did that for you, and like how hard was it to make that decision? Because I think for people listening, a lot of people will, as they start to build up potentially their online coaching businesses, or as they tend to kind of, think, do you know what, actually I'm only really having this job just to kind of like have a bit of security. And like, what made you think, do you know what, actually, like I'm gonna take the leap of like, I don't need the security, I'll find my feet.
Yeah. So there, it sounds like quite basic, basically. There was a few things that came into play kind of like at the same time. I'll be completely honest. The first thing was that we got bought out by Thermo Fisher.
Okay.
So we got like a bit of a payout.
Yeah.
Right. So with that payout, I knew that I was going to be okay for X amount of months.
Yeah.
I mean, I've now obviously got an accountant, and he is literally like, Hannah, why do you not spend money? Like, he's like, how is this your account? I'm like, what do I need?
Yeah, I don't need anything. Yeah.
I need to just pay for my dog's meds. That's pretty much it.
That's
so don't fucking know what I said. That's okay. But yeah, so I knew that was kind of like, I guess, like a bubble, right? And being completely honest, without sounding like I'm playing the fucking violin, I've been poor. Like, I've been homeless before, right? I have been living on settees, like people's settees like for weeks, months, and there was even a time like, as a family we didn't have money.
Yeah.
I knew, and I still am very capable of living without money.
Yeah.
So I kind of had this like small little payout, and I've saved my whole life because, like I said, I worked the whole time that I was at uni, and that was down to absolute like fear of ever being in the position that we were in when we were younger. So I had savings, and I had this little payout, and I kind of was like, within the job role itself, there was like this training happening that I'd wanted to do, and I put my name forward so many times, and I just kept, without diving too much into it, without kind of putting any like tarnish on names or anything like that, because I'm at peace with it, right? But I was just getting so much pushback, and I just wasn't worth it. It really just wasn't worth it anymore. That, like I said, the turning point for me was I was walking into work happy, and within 10 minutes I wasn't. And I didn't feel like me anymore. And that is definitely something that I've just noticed as a pattern through life, that if I see that happen, I'm out. And I'm not allowing it to happen, because you're in control of that.
Exactly, yeah, for sure. And
So
so when you kind of said, right, okay, I'm out, and then you moved into kind of like team posing with Hannah full time, what took your business from like, I guess, like smaller scale of like a part-time job, and then how did you then take that business and like perforate it to like where you are right now with it, which is obviously super successful, and you have, you know, a big team. It's not just Hannah anymore, which is so fucking cool. How did you get from like that point there to like making it as successful as it is right now?
So this could be so in depth. So I'm going to really try and like, make it as small as possible, as condensed as possible. Now, obviously, I've mentioned before about all the job roles that I've had in life. I am so grateful for all those job roles, because they have taught me so much. Like, and I've probably took little nuggets from absolutely everything, right? So yes, it started as just me. Now we've got 3 other coaches. I've also got like an events manager. I've got my accountant team. I've got like someone that helps with TikTok.
I love that.
And I am looking to kind of bring someone on for more, not personal assistant vibes, but more kind of back end things, because I'm realizing right now I'm spending so much more time organizing, because there's so much more to business than people realize. And I'm spending so much time doing that. I want to teach. That is what I love. So I do love the whole part of business, but I'm never going to be someone that's like, oh, I'll just sit back, like, you coaches coach. No. That's it. That's my job. So being honest, like, if anyone is listening to this and they're like, how do you take your business from like an idea to an actual business? Do it properly. And what I mean by that is, like, don't do it backstreet, like through bank accounts, like through PayPal. Tell yourself what's going to limit my growth. And I'm going to make sure that that doesn't happen. Something that's going to limit your growth is like trying to do it all like secret, like behind the government lines, like all that jazz. Set up a limited company, get yourself an accountant, search legal advice as well, so that if you do bring people on your team, everything is all sorted in that side as well. And also, like, just educate yourself. So for me, like, all those different aspects, obviously they kind of all come into play, but that hasn't come from just like, oh yeah, like Sarah down the road taught me that or told me that.
Like, you've gone out and like learned it.
So I built my own website, and I was building my own website before I even went fully self-employed. I was working on it for months, like an hour a day, just like in the background, just building that, right? So in my opinion, to kind of build a successful business, like, do although I've said bring on a team and do it properly, but also like put in the work yourself and do
Don't
those
try
things
fast track
yourself.
it. Like,
Don't try fast track it.
yeah, like you have
Exactly.
to put in the hours. Like, I think
Yeah.
in today's day and age, like people want everything for nothing, and it's like you
Yes.
can't. If you jump through loopholes and like just try and do something quickly, it will fail. Like
And
it's not going
it
to be successful. You know,
it's not gonna be.
you could copy someone's whole Google Sheets. That's not going to make you a good coach.
Yeah, yes,
Like
exactly.
it's like I have no problem. Like if someone wants to copy my sheets, fine, but you're not going to get anything from it.
You're
Like
not
he
gonna
didn't
be
even help
me.
me. Like he even says to me, like I'm like, can you help me with my sheets? And he's like, you need to just do it. Like he's like, I can't. He does help, but he's like,
Yeah.
you need to learn how to do it because
Yeah.
me just doing it isn't going to make you better at it. And like
Yes.
it's the same as like anything in work or anything like that. I'm like, you need somebody to show you how to do it so you can do it for yourself.
Yeah. And again, like we mentioned about, like, it's very obvious when certain people are like going in for the money side of things. I think it's very obvious when they've kind of just been handed everything as well. Like,
Yeah.
you know, maybe they've just been like, oh, here's my supplier, here's my this, here's my that. And by supplier, I don't mean drugs. I mean, like, you know, for example, merchandise.
Yeah.
You know, getting all like kind of the information from other people instead of just searching it for themselves, because again, they didn't have to do the work, so they don't get that feeling of satisfaction from it as well. And I think, as we all know, listening to this podcast, because if you are listening, then if you've got this far, then Jesus Christ, you're either on a very long walk or
All of the cardio.
yeah, but passion is everything.
Yeah.
And if you aren't passionate about what you do, honestly, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the time, and as you can probably tell, I'm passionate about this subject, but it's upsetting to see coaches, whether that be opposing coaches or other coaches, like basically ruining people's lives and experiences just for money.
Yeah.
And again, that's obviously like a completely different avenue that we can go down. But if you do want success, right, you have to find something that you are excited about, because you will then put the time in. You won't feel like, oh God, I've got to go do this. There's going to be, don't get me wrong, there's going to be aspects of it that are petrifying. And that, as cliche as it is, I don't know if I've mentioned it on this podcast before, but that's why I got this tattoo. And I do seem to like bring it into conversation quite a lot, because the tattoo on my forearm is Feel the Fear. And it's because I genuinely, even today, I've done something that's like made me scared. Like, and by that, like, made me feel nervous, anxious, like whether that be a call with someone important, whether that be like pushing myself to another limit. Like, it's, yes, you are scared, or yes, you're like feeling the fear, but you're doing it anyway. And too many people nowadays rely on that feeling of like comfort. And you need to actually like lean into the fear, and you need to be able to continue pushing yourself whilst feeling like that. And in all honesty, like that is how Team Pose with Hannah has like come to how it is today, because of always just kind of pushing for more. But
Even if it's
going
scary,
for it.
just doing it anyway. Like, like this is scary, but like if you don't kind of take risks or, you know, be brave, like you're never gonna get to places that like you kind of like beyond your imagination.
And the worst thing someone's gonna say is no.
Exactly.
Cool.
And I think the problem with a lot of people is they're too scared of rejection. Like they're too
Mhm.
scared of like the answer being no, and like they're almost too afraid to like ask or push themselves to somewhere. Like, you know, like for example, like you like asking if people like you asking someone to do a certain event. Like I remember you saying like even the MBW collaboration, you were like that was like big. Like you almost like if you were scared that somebody would say no, you would never ever even get half the opportunities you've had. It's not luck. It's you being brave. Like,
but you're so right though, and people can like listen to that and take that into so many aspects of their life though. Like, it isn't luck, it is being brave. And sometimes you need to sit with yourself and you be like, I need to put my big girl pants on right now. I've got a very important call at like 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. I am pooing my pants, sir.
But it's
Like
exciting.
but I'm doing it, right?
Exactly.
And if you always if you don't do things because of how you feel, you are never going to get anything in life. And you've got one life, so why not try and get the absolute best?
Exactly, and absolutely preach to that. But yeah, I think that's like a super nice overview of almost like the non-bodybuilding side of Hannah, because
Yeah.
we could have definitely have like gone down the route of like talking through each prep and things like that, but that's going to come when we discuss like this year's prep and stuff like that. I guess, is there anything else that you think is like significant that has like happened, or I guess, you know, even kind of like to where you are now, before we potentially just go and answer a few of the questions that we've got?
Ooh.
I know it's hard.
When you say like anything significant that's happened, like I don't personally sit there and think like I've had a hard life,
Yeah.
right? But I definitely think that like I have I have faced things that could have gone very, very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most important thing for me that I wish that I'd learned so much sooner was to just do everything that like I personally want to do. Like, don't try to be anyone else.
Don't
Don't
be a
try
people
to
pleaser.
do don't be a people pleaser. Don't try to do something that other people will want you to do.
Yeah.
And that growing into my kind of like this is going to sound so hippie, but genuinely like growing into my authentic self has been the most revealing part of my life
That's
ever.
absolutely amazing.
And
I guess that leads really nicely onto like the first question, because it's
okay.
what piece of advice do you wish that you knew when you were 18 that like you could give yourself now?
Oh my god. 18-year-old Hannah was fucking wild.
What would you say to 18-year-old Hannah right now?
Stop it. No.
Pull yourself together.
Literally, probably backhand her, mate. She probably needed a backhand. That's
I
what
was
she
just saying,
needed.
just slap.
um, well, to 18-year-old Hannah, I probably would actually have to have like a full-blown sit-down conversation with her and
Okay, one
genuinely
sentence, Hannah. One sentence. You've got one moment.
just
What are you saying to little Hannah? It'll be okay.
no, like she was a nuisance. I'd be like, genuinely, mate, what are you fucking doing? That is probably all I'd say.
Great.
What are you fucking
That's
doing?
lovely advice. What do you do?
What are you doing?
Fair enough. Okay. Who has been your biggest influences in and outside of bodybuilding, like throughout your life?
So bodybuilding wise, it's quite funny because I was speaking about this and I noticed that all the bodybuilders I was mentioning are all assisted.
Yeah, I get that though. But like we've already discussed this on other podcasts, and when you started bodybuilding, there wasn't natural bodybuilders. Like
Yeah,
there normally wasn't. They weren't the
yeah,
people that we followed on Instagram. Like there
no,
wasn't like a community of it was always just like Caitlin Hill, Meg, like that was who we
yeah,
had. Like, you know, there wasn't anyone, and obviously like Caitlin was natty at a certain point, but there wasn't like the natural bodybuilding like passion,
no.
right?
No, God no. So in terms of like maybe when I first started bodybuilding, she will definitely not be listening to this, but I don't know if you remember Alex Yates.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah, so
remember.
she took me, so we lived like quite local. When
Yeah.
I moved home, that period of time that I was on
Mhm.
about, she didn't know that I was like going through all that or anything like
Yeah.
that, but she met up with me and we had a little gym session and
Oh,
she took me through bikini posing for the first time.
love that.
She then introduced me to my first coach,
Yeah.
and so
She was
she
coached by the
obviously,
same, wasn't she?
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
remember. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so she, without realizing, she had a massive impact on like, I guess me going for it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the rest of bodybuilding, like AJ will always have a very big influence on me, again, probably without him realizing.
Yeah.
And that's simply because he was the first kind of person that was speaking about being a natural athlete. I followed his prep from, again, like all those years ago.
Yeah.
And I think to me that was kind of him and Kuba
Yeah.
were the first people that I was like, oh, okay, like
Mhm.
look at these guys, like look at them go, you know?
Yeah.
Like it was really interesting. Like I loved watching it all. And yeah, they were definitely the first two people that were ever within my kind of remit of
Yeah.
bodybuilding outside of just me in
Mhm.
Birmingham, right?
Yeah.
I really love who Meg Sylvester has like grown into over
Mhm.
these years. Like if we think about her as an athlete, like in 2019, like
Yeah.
but even her as like an individual as well, like I
Mhm.
feel like she inspires me a lot, not just like, oh oh my god, you're big, like not in
Yeah.
that sense. Like I just feel like she has really come into, yeah, like herself. Like she just
Mhm.
seems to just be so unapologetically her,
Yeah.
and I really love that.
Yeah.
So that she definitely inspires me on that side. But
Mhm.
a lot of the time, like I guess I don't necessarily, so I don't have someone that I look at and I'm like, oh, I aspire to look like those.
Yeah, I
There's
get
not
it.
actually, yeah, there's not actually anyone that I necessarily want to look like
Yeah.
in that sense. There's a few that are like, oh, absolutely crazy, like Maddie Vital
Mm,
Fitness,
crazy.
right?
Absolutely
Like
crazy. Yeah.
incredible. Like there's so many that
But
I
it's
do
more
follow.
like appreciative of like
Yes.
I know what that has taken to get there, like
Yeah.
that's pretty cool, right? Rather than like
Yes.
I wish I was her, because me and you are the
Yeah.
same. We don't ever wish that. It's like, yeah, that's pretty fucking cool, but
That's
like,
pretty fucking cool.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what's her Instagram is like NPH Fit or something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. And like even
But
just
she
some of
just
the,
gets peeled.
yeah, like some of the women that we've seen in the last kind of year coming onto like the natural scene, it's just like,
Yeah.
wow. Like how have you just know what it's taken to get A, that level of muscle, and B, that level of condition. It's just
Yeah.
like so cool.
Yeah.
And is there anyone like outside of bodybuilding that you would say has like influenced your life?
Yeah. 1,000% Stacey. So
Yeah.
Stacey was my cousin that, so she got diagnosed in that time, but she did pass away. So when I did live with her, so when I lived with her, she had a PhD. She was also in like the pharmacology industry. She worked for Public Health England. She just was someone that she was so smart, but she also had like this strong black country accent, and she was never like ashamed to kind of be loud. And when I lived with her, like we would I was teaching her like how to twerk, like we would just like
That's really
always
cool.
be, she taught me how to be able to be smart and proud of being smart, like
Yeah,
not to hide, but also to still just fuck around and have fun.
yeah.
And within that time of me also staying there, like shock, another partner had actually, I found out that he cheated on me at that time,
Mm.
and she literally sat there and we were like just sobbing together because she was like so upset that someone
Yeah,
had like hurt me. And she taught me like, you will never deserve that, like, and yeah,
good.
she basically turned my head around in
Mm.
ever allowing myself to be treated that way too. So there was just so many layers to that woman.
I'm
um
so proud of you
and
right
oh man,
now.
she's, yeah, it's, that's probably like one of the hardest parts
Mm.
that I wish, yeah, that's
Yeah,
the one thing that I
yeah,
just wish that I could change, you know.
yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
for
she's
sure.
just inspired me in like every part of my life. So
Yeah, and you know, it's so nice to like have that like memory of the fact that like how much it's changed your life, and I'm sure she
Yeah.
knew that as well, which is like it's so special, and it's the part of you that will never ever go, will never ever, like, you know what I mean, and it's a part like you'll
Yeah.
take the whole way, and you know whenever you kind of talk about it, it's like, yeah, like she did change my life, and it's so nice to talk about her in like such a positive way as well.
Yeah, like I always have said, like, how lucky am I to have had someone like that in my life, even for a short period of time, that had such an impact.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
you go through your life like meeting so many people, and they don't have any kind of impact
Yeah.
like that. So I'm just fortunate to have had that kind of influence from that.
Yeah,
So
no, that's yeah, special, very special.
mm.
So one of the other questions was, what was your kind of routine when you were like training and studying at the same time? Of like, how did you balance that? If you did
Oh.
balance it.
I I so I am obviously someone that is like I love routine.
Mhm.
Now, my unis nowadays, I swear kids don't do shit.
I know.
My uni was so full on.
Yeah.
Like it was like 8 till 6 vibes. Like it was a
Mhm.
long day. But say on the days that I wasn't actually in uni, say the days where I was revising,
Yeah.
right? You know, for exams and things, I would be pretty much revising 7 till 7.
Mhm.
That was like my time, and 7 till 9, I would go to the gym because it was like
Mhm.
around the corner, and I would just fuck myself so that I fell asleep.
There we go. I love that. That is.
And that was my every time someone said to me like, "How are you going to the gym?" I was like, "My brain will not let me sleep unless I just go fuck myself in the gym for 2 hours."
Fair.
So when I say balance,
Mm.
that didn't really happen.
Yeah.
And then obviously, typically, I'd like dance, which would be
Mhm.
like maybe some nights would be like 10 till 12, some nights would be like 10 till 2 in the
Yeah.
morning.
Wow.
Um, and then on weekends, like I'd either work in Gap or the pub, depending on like
Mhm.
what job I had at that time.
Yeah.
So if I was at the pub, I did 12-hour shifts because
Mhm.
if you said you didn't want to break, then they'd pay you the whole time. So I just
Yeah.
wouldn't break. So yeah,
Wow.
pretty much just like
Yeah.
worked.
So,
Oh yeah, and then like there'd be obviously I'd like potentially finish work and then like stay for drinks, or like because when you were a dancer, like you got free drinks.
yeah. So one of the questions, like I guess, kind of leading from that is like, did like that impact your social life? But like, I guess you probably didn't have much of one at that point, did you? Because there was no time for it, really.
Yeah, I was when I went to uni, and it's something that I've like reflected on more recently actually. Like I realized how much I did say no.
Mm.
Um, but I used to say no because of like the money side of things. Like I literally just used to say no to everything.
Yeah.
But it was just because I was just like petrified of like, yeah,
Mm.
not having enough money. So I restricted myself and didn't let myself have opportunities because of money, not necessarily because of training.
Your
So
training,
it
yeah.
just actually allowed me to go train because I just said no to everything else, basically.
Yeah. No, that is
It
very,
works.
very fair enough. Cool. I mean, you know, some of the other questions aren't really kind of relevant to like the path we're on at the moment. So I
Yeah.
guess like conscious of, I guess, time, kind of taking us. I know, like, I knew this would be a long episode, but it's been like I've absolutely loved it, and it's been so nice to kind of just hear it. But I guess kind of like taking us all the way, kind of like now you've obviously done like a few preps, and you know your business is established, and I guess taking us like all the way to today's Hannah. And like kind of what does your life kind of like and your daily routine look like at the moment, and I guess kind of then we'll kind of see how different it is from, I guess, kind of when you were at your lowest.
Oh, I just got like the biggest lump in my throat.
Why?
Oh, um, My life right now is literally like the life that I want.
Good.
Like, like, yeah. But if this is my life for like the next, how old am I? How until I die. Like, then yeah, this is the kind of life that I want. I mean,
And would you say it's
I
probably taken you like all of those years until probably like even right now to have
yeah,
found like everything that you've kind of almost worked for this moment for,
yeah,
of like a balance of
yeah.
everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm 29. You know what? I feel like you lose track at a
Yeah,
certain
for
point.
sure.
I was born in 1996, so I think I'm 20. No, no, I'm 28. I don't know. Anyway,
29.
I, but no, I definitely feel like there's obviously days where I still feel so overwhelmed with
Yeah.
like what's happening, like even like day to day tasks, like or just what's to come or just like life in general, right? And I think that's something that people do need to hear, because I think,
Mm.
yes, I've got the life that I want right now,
Mm-hmm.
and that life includes like, you know, dogs, like partner, like training, like work, like
Mm-hmm.
for example, just I mean, I still wake up at like what 6 every day, and
Yeah.
typically I'll be working from 7, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean it's 8:15 now, and
Yeah.
I have
And
it's
still,
I've
yeah.
been working like all day, but you know, it's there's so many elements of my life that I just love. Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
there's pose with Hannah's side of like actual teaching posing.
Yeah.
Now we've also got events,
Yeah.
workshop, retreats, got the
Mm-hmm.
merchandise side of it. Like, it's all
Yeah.
so much fun. Like, then my training, the fact that I'm now able to, I'm not even going to say actually now allow training to be like a focus, because it genuinely has been my everything for
Yeah.
like 5 years
Mm-hmm.
more. Um, but the
But
fact
you've
that I
given
can
the
be like,
time that you want to give to it.
yeah, yeah. And I allow that, you know, like I do allow my training to be like a very high priority.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm without it sounding like, oh, I'm just a simple girl. Like
Mm.
I am just, this is all I want. And
Yeah.
I'm just so happy with this. And I
Yeah.
think that doesn't mean that I'm comfortable. It doesn't mean that this is all I want. Like,
Mm.
I've got obviously big goals, big plans with
Yeah.
my life, but
Your
it's
heart
all
is
just
full
that
now.
kind of, my heart is full. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
And I think like you should be so proud of like everything you've overcome to get where you have right now, because like I know it's easy, like we said at the start of the podcast, for people to just look from the outside and be like, I know we've said it already, but like, oh, you know, you have everything, you're so lucky. But I think this just goes to show that you haven't always had that, and you've actually kind of literally
Mm.
been rock bottom, and you've built a life back up for yourself. And you know, you've not had the easiest with relationships, with food, with everything, but you've kind of kept working on yourself and like kept getting yourself to a point where like, do you know what, you can actually stand there and say, do you know what, I fucking did it. Like I am so proud of myself. And that doesn't mean you're just going to sit on your ass and stop. It just means now you can kind of push forward with like the support and like the people
Yeah.
around you that you deserved the whole time.
Oh.
Oh. No YouTube, no YouTube. But yeah, I mean, I guess just thank you. I mean, anybody that has kind of like made it this far as well, like thank you for kind of listening to like Hannah's story, because I think everyone needed to hear it. And you know, there's obviously so much more that we can kind of talk about, and you know, I'm sure other things will come up in other podcasts. But I think it kind of gives us like just such a nice overview of like where you've come from to kind of get where you have right now.
Well, yeah, if anyone is still listening, Jesus, thank you, because you know, it's at times like you can feel that you almost forget all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you can very easily just continue with the push, and you can still have like, yeah, a very like full heart, full soul, full cup,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it can be almost quite refreshing to reflect.
Yeah.
And I am a reflective person, but not as far as all of that, you know.
Yeah.
And when I do think back to, like, not anything to do with what I had or where I lived, but like just how I felt, just like
Yeah.
waking up and how I felt to how I am now. Like, yeah, I am proud, and I think so many people should be able to say that too. Like, I think too many people, even especially in bodybuilding, you know, they'll do the whole kind of like, oh, I'll never be proud or I'll
Yeah.
never be satisfied, and I'm actually like so against that. I think you should be able to stand there and be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I did that. I'm
Yeah.
so proud.
Yeah.
And you should be proud of every little bit that you do overcome, like whether it be through bodybuilding, through competing, through life, through your career, through relationships with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
every part. So thank
Definitely.
you for kind of
No.
giving me the platform, I
Of
suppose.
course, and yeah,
Um,
no, like I said, like it's been absolutely amazing, and I'm actually it's probably one of like my favorite episodes to do because it's just like people have said, like this is just about us and like more than bodybuilding, you know, it's it's
mhm,
literally is just kind of like beyond that, and beyond that is just two essentially normal people, you know, that have just almost built their own lives for themselves, and hopefully we can kind of like inspire other people that may be at their rock bottom right now, or you know, trying to find their feet in whatever they're doing, or you know, maybe making the jump to change career paths. Like it's scary, we've all been scared, but like that doesn't mean that you can't do it, you know. It's just trying to like take the leap of faith, and then you'll find your way in the end, you know. But
yeah,
yes, thank you very much for sharing all of that, because it's again, even sharing it is not easy. But yeah, I think everyone will definitely kind of love to hear it.
thank you. And of course, we'll end it in the traditional way. Make sure you guys like, share, comment, Spotify and YouTube, all of that jazz. And let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you do want more of these kind of in-depth, raw
Yeah.
podcasts. But yeah, thank you so much again, guys, and we will see you in the next one.